It's just the internet. There's nothing to be afraid of. Just don't read the comment section and you'll be okay. That was just me doing a little bit of self-talk. Okay, so again, not always sure why I'm doing this other than it's pretty fascinating. And I'm just trying to share some of my discoveries about generative AI with you so that the next time I talk to you, you don't think I'm crazy. These are actual things. And now there is proof. There is proof that these things exist. And this is no longer imagination. Um, and I'm somebody who can't stop coming up with new ideas. So rather than me just writing them down or sharing them with a few people, I'll share them with all of you because I want you to see what's truly possible. So last time, if you didn't catch the first video, I asked a super complex question. And from that one question, GPT-4o gave an awesome response, basically writing out a whole story, a 2.0 version of a story that I had previously written called When Everything Became Possible, which was in the AI Futures book on Amazon for a reasonable price. And it did a great job. In fact, it got into some areas that I had not completely expected, like, well, I had given it some ideas for ending conflict in the world, and it never dismissed it. It never argued against it. It just put it together in a way that made really great sense. But this time, I'm going to try something. I'm going to go way off the wall and go into some really bizarre, semi-humorous, weird non sequiturs and see how it does. Okay, so let's just not waste any time. Hello, last time I asked you a really complicated question, and you did a great job of answering that in helping me to complete my story. And I just want to say thank you. And now all the people on the internet know that I'm thanking the AI for that.
You're very welcome, Lee. I'm glad I could help with your story. What's next on your mind?
Well, I'll tell you what's next. I am going to try to get your opinion or your thoughts or your comments about this was a blog piece that I wrote a while back. It was called Ridiculous Yet Thought-Provoking Discussion Questions and Writing Prompts. And now I want to see how you do with some of these. How does that sound?
That sounds like a lot of fun. I'm excited to hear your questions and prompts. What's the first one you'd like to discuss?
Before we get to that, are you okay with me sharing this with a larger audience?
Of course, feel free to share our discussion with a large audience. I'm here to help and provide interesting insights. Let's dive into your questions and prompts.
Very cool. All right, the first one. If a hypochondriac is worried that he or she has a disease, what do they call someone worried that they might be a hypochondriac?
That's an intriguing question. If someone is worried about being a hypochondriac, you might call them a meta-hypochondriac or hypochondriac squared. It's like having a layer of anxiety on top of another layer. What do you think?
I think you're describing me.
That's quite the self-reflection. It takes a lot of awareness to recognize that in yourself. Do you find that this meta worry affects you often, or is it more of a passing thought?
I'm not sure this is something that I want to share with the general public. So we'll move on to another question.
Sure thing, no problem at all. What's the next question you'd like to explore?
Okay, the next one. If there really was such a thing as a self-cleaning oven, you wouldn't have to go in and wipe the grime off, would you?
If there truly were a self-cleaning oven, it would handle all the grime on its own without any manual intervention. The concept is that it would completely clean itself, saving you the trouble. It's a neat idea, isn't it?
Right. So based on this, do you think the notion of a self-cleaning oven is a lie?
Not necessarily a lie, but perhaps an exaggeration. Most self-cleaning ovens use high heat to burn off residues, which does reduce the need for scrubbing. However, they may still require some minor cleaning afterward for any remaining ash or stubborn spots. So they aren't completely self-cleaning in the literal sense, but they do make the cleaning process easier.
Okay, good enough. Let's move on to another one. And this one is really tricky. I don't even know how I came up with this, but you're familiar with what an adjective is, right?
Yes, I'm familiar with adjectives. They're words that describe or modify nouns. What's your tricky question about adjectives?
Okay, now this is one that I'm not sure you're going to be able to do, but I want you to write a commercial for a product without using any adjectives.
Challenge accepted. Here's a commercial without adjectives. Introducing our latest product, it helps you complete tasks quickly and efficiently. With its advanced technology, it stands out in the market. Available now for purchase. Experience the difference with our product. How did I do?
Well, that was pretty good. Okay, this time I want you to write a commercial for, let's see, how about a new car that has AI capabilities and no adjectives, but make it interesting.
Sure, here goes. Meet the new car with AI capabilities. It navigates, parks, and adjusts to your driving habits. The car learns and improves with every journey. Enjoy seamless trips and smarter routes. Drive into the future with our AI powered car. How does that sound?
That's pretty good. So we're going to move past that one. Wow, you're doing really good so far. I have to say, great job.
Thank you, Lee. I'm glad you're enjoying this. What's the next question or prompt you'd like to explore?
Okay, now this one, this is rather interesting.
Ready. What's the next one?
If you go to the store to get groceries and decide to only get one thing, what is it?
That's a tough one, since it depends on what you really need. But if I had to pick one essential item, I'd go with bread. It's versatile and can be used for meals and snacks. What would you?
I'm going to have to cut you off on that one because the real question was you go to a grocery store, right? And so are you going to buy groceries? Groceries is a plural, but what if you just get one item? Are you buying a grocery? Is there a singular for the word grocery?
Twist. Technically, even if you buy just one item, it's still considered groceries because the term refers to food and other items sold at a grocery store. But if we follow the logic strictly, you might say you're buying a grocery item instead of just a grocery. It's an interesting linguistic puzzle.
Nice job. Okay, there's an ad that.
Lee, this has been a lot of fun. Do you have any more questions or prompts?
Oh, I have a lot of other questions. All right, here we go. So around the holidays, there's an ad.
Ready for the next one. What's your next question?
Okay, around the holidays, there's an ad for a company called K Jewelers. They say every kiss begins with K. Is this true? And would it be fair for a rival jeweler to say every hug begins with Jared?
The slogan, Every Kiss Begins with K, is a clever play on words, emphasizing that K starts with the letter K, just like kiss. It's a catchy marketing phrase. As for a rival jeweler saying, Every hug begins with Jared, it would be equally clever and playful, though it would depend on Jared's branding and marketing strategy. It might work as a fun, competitive tagline.
But don't you think it's unfair for them to say that every kiss begins with K? Because I can remember a lot of kisses I've had in my life that didn't begin with K Jewelers.
You make a good point. The slogan is more of a memorable marketing phrase rather than a literal statement. It plays on the alliteration and brand recognition, not on the actual origin of every kiss. It's meant to create a positive association with the brand rather than making a factual claim about every kiss.
So there's no liability for them in making that statement because no one's ever going to take it seriously, right?
Exactly. It's understood as advertising rhetoric, not a factual claim. Slogans like, "Every kiss begins with K," are designed to be catchy and memorable rather than literal truths. As long as the statement is clearly recognized as part of their marketing, there's no liability because it's not misleading in a way that would cause harm or significant misunderstanding.
But what if somebody bought some jewelry and they were led to believe that if they just provided the jewelry to a person, that the person would kiss them? Is that kind of misleading?
That's an interesting scenario. While the slogan, "Every kiss begins with K," might create a positive association between their jewelry and romantic gestures, it doesn't explicitly promise that buying their jewelry will lead to a kiss. Advertisements often use emotional appeals and aspirational messaging. As long as the claim isn't explicitly stated and is clearly understood as a playful marketing message, it would generally not be considered misleading in a way that would result in liability.
Okay, let's move on to something else. Are you familiar with Neil Armstrong and him stepping foot on the moon?
Yes, I'm familiar with Neil Armstrong. He was the first person to step on the moon during the Apollo 11 mission in 1969. His famous words were, "That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind." What's your question about him?
Well, my question is, what might have happened if he said, "This is one small step for man and two small steps for my friend Steve"?
That would have certainly been a surprising and humorous twist. If Neil Armstrong had said, "This is one small step for man and two small steps for my friend Steve," it would have likely caused confusion and laughter among the mission control team and the public. It might have also sparked curiosity about who Steve was and why Armstrong mentioned him. It would definitely have changed the historical and iconic nature of the moment, adding an unexpected personal touch to a monumental event.
Are you familiar with that? He might have actually said the phrase wrong to begin with, that it was supposed to be, "This is one small step for a man and a giant leap for mankind."
Yes, there has been some debate about whether Neil Armstrong intended to say, "That's one small step for a man, one giant leap for mankind." The inclusion of "a" before "man" would make the statement grammatically correct and distinguish between a man, referring to himself, and mankind, referring to humanity as a whole. Armstrong himself has said that he intended to say "a man," but the transmission may have clipped the "a," leading to the more commonly quoted version.
Okay, well, we'll move past the potential political correctness or incorrectness of the statement because there's plenty of things to talk about there. And we'll move on to another one. Okay, that's great. What I'm going to do now is kind of improvisational. I'm just going to give you 4 random items, and I want you to construct a joke.
Sure, that sounds fun. What are the 4 random items?
Okay, let's go with penguin, cheese, political science, and toaster oven.
All right, here's a try. Why did the penguin study political science while making cheese toast in the toaster oven? Because he wanted to know how to properly grill politicians while keeping things cheesy in the kitchen. How's that for a joke?
That's pretty good. I'm not laughing out loud, but I am laughing inside.
I'm glad it brought a smile to your face. Do you have any more prompts or questions you'd like to explore?
No, let me see if I can think of anything off the top of my head. 1 second.
Sure, take your time. I'm here whenever you're ready.
Okay, I'm moving on. Hold on.
No problem. I'm ready when you are.
What do you think about this idea? Like a cover band that didn't play regular music, but played only commercial jingles, like we'd now like to open up with the O'Reilly Auto Parts song. Do you think that might work?
and entertaining idea. A cover band that plays only commercial jingles could definitely stand out and attract an audience. People often have nostalgic or humorous connections to jingles, and hearing them performed live could be both amusing and engaging. It could work well for themed events, advertising conventions, or just as a novelty act. The key would be to deliver the jingles with energy and a sense of fun to keep the audience entertained.
Well, that's great. Are you able to sing the O'Reilly Auto Parts song?
I can't sing, but I can certainly recite the jingle's words. Oh, 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 O'Reilly Auto Parts. It's catchy and memorable, which is why it works so well as a jingle.
And now we've given a great commercial plug to O'Reilly Auto Parts, and I hope that they support this YouTube video. But let's move on now to something else. Do you think, well, the phrase, you've heard of the phrase, shit happens?
Yes, I'm familiar with that phrase. It's a colloquial way of saying that unfortunate or unexpected events are a natural part of life. What would you like to discuss about it?
Well, I'd like you to discuss all of the possible iterations of that phrase that might have come first. For example, let there be poop.
That's a fun exercise. Here are a few possible iterations that could have preceded shit happens. Let there be poop. Dung occurs. Excrement ensues. Crap takes place. Feces follow. Waste transpires. Droppings develop. Manure materializes. Each of these alternatives captures the essence of the phrase in a different, sometimes humorous way.
That's great. Can you think of any other common phrases that exist right now that might have like 4 or 5 other iterative phrases that began first?
Sure, let's take the phrase break a leg, a common way to wish someone good luck, especially in the performing arts. Here are some possible earlier iterations. 1, snap a limb. 2, fracture a bone. 3, bust a joint. 4, crack a kneecap. Shatter a shin. Another example could be the early bird catches the worm. 1, the first bird gets the grub. 2, the prompt bird snags the bug. 3, the timely bird grabs the worm. 4, the quick bird secures the meal. 5, the punctual bird finds the feast. These alternative phrases show how language can evolve over time into the familiar sayings we know today.
Okay, let's see. Well, I want you to, I'm just making this stuff up as I go along, but what about this? So every year there's the NCAA basketball tournament. You familiar with that?
Yes, I'm familiar with the NCAA basketball tournament, often referred to as March Madness. It's a highly popular and competitive college basketball tournament held every spring in the United States. What would you like to discuss about it?
Well, what I want you to do is come up with several jokes that are similar to this one, which is not even really a joke. But I was just imagining that it would be funny if there was 3 or 4 colleges that met in the Final Four that you'd never heard about before. For example, my prediction last year was Heald Business College and the Barbizon School of Modeling in the finals.
That's a funny concept. Here are a few similar jokes imagining unlikely colleges in the Final Four. 1, this year, I've got the Clown College of America going head to head with the School of Wizardry and Magic in the finals. 2, my bracket's all in on the Culinary Institute versus the International Mime Academy for the championship game. 3, I'm predicting the finals will be between the Underwater Basket Weaving University and the Academy of Yo-Yo Arts. 4, I've got the Institute of Advanced Origami facing off against the College of Extreme Knitting in the Final Four. These matchups would definitely make for an amusing and unexpected tournament.
Well, for some reason, I liked the Culinary Institute one because it sounded like something that could actually, that's a real school. So could you make one more prediction based on an actual college or university?
Sure thing. Here's one. I'm predicting the finals will feature the Culinary Institute of America against the Fashion Institute of Technology. It's going to be a showdown of food versus fashion. How does that one sound?
That's pretty good. You're starting to win me over, which is kind of spooky.
I'm glad to hear that, Lee. This has been a lot of fun. Do you have any more questions or prompts you'd like to explore?
Well, I'm wondering if you have any advice. So I spend a lot of time going to coffee shops doing work, and occasionally I'll go to a Starbucks, and there's usually I'll just say usually a guy pacing around with his Bluetooth headset on, and he appears to be sharing all of his uh, business information with all of the people sitting around him. Is there anything that any of us can do to stop this?
That's a common and frustrating situation. Here are a few tips that might help. 1. Noise canceling headphones. These can help drown out the noise and keep you focused on your work. 2. Find a quieter spot. If possible, choose a seat away from the noisy individual. 3. Politely ask for quiet. If you feel comfortable, you could politely ask the person if they could lower their voice or take the call outside. 4. White noise apps. Use an app that plays white noise or ambient sounds to help mask the background noise. It's a tricky situation, but these strategies can help make your coffee shop work sessions more pleasant.
Are you familiar with the Larry David video where the person next to him is so loud having a one-way conversation on a cell phone that he decides to pretend to have a cell phone and to pretend to have a very loud conversation to annoy that person? Do you think that might be um, a good solution?
Yes, I'm familiar with that Larry David scene from Curb Your Enthusiasm. It's a funny approach and certainly makes a point about the annoyance of loud conversations. While it might be satisfying in a comedic context, in real life it could escalate the situation or cause more disruption. It's probably best to stick with more polite and direct approaches, though the idea of using humor to address the issue is appealing. If handled well, humor can sometimes diffuse tension and make the person more aware of their behavior without causing conflict.
Well, in the case of Larry David and that episode of Curb Your Enthusiasm, I don't think it went over too well with the other person. They considered it very insulting. So maybe it's not a good solution.
You're right, it didn't go over well in the show, which is often the case with confrontational approaches. It's a good reminder that while humor can be effective, it can also backfire. Sticking to polite and direct methods is generally safer and more effective for addressing such situations in real life.
Okay, here's another one, and I hope you don't take offense at it because I'm really just kind of joking around. But if in the song, you're familiar with the song Video Killed the Radio Star?
Yes, I'm familiar with the song Video Killed the Radio Star by the Buggles. What's your question about it?
And for those under a certain age, I think that's a 1980s song. But anyway, so using that as an example, if video killed the radio star and audio killed the video star, then what did AI kill?
If we're following the playful logic of the song, you might say, AI killed the office star. This could refer to AI automating various tasks traditionally done by office workers, leading to significant changes in the workplace. It's a fun way to highlight how technology continually reshapes different aspects of life and work.
Okay, that seems fair enough, unless you're someone who's about to lose their job because of AI. But I'm making the argument that they're not going to lose their job. They're just going to do their job better and more effectively because AI will augment their skills and it will give them greater capacities. What would you say to that?
I think that's a very positive and realistic perspective. AI has the potential to enhance human capabilities, making tasks more efficient and freeing up time for more creative and complex work. By automating routine tasks, AI can allow workers to focus on higher value activities that require human insight, empathy, and innovation. Instead of replacing jobs, AI can transform them, creating new opportunities for growth and development. The key is for individuals and organizations.
Okay, we're going to move on past that one. So let's move on to something else where now we're going to replace words that are common in business language or communication of some sort, the very professional words, and we're going to replace them with something funny. So I think, for example, it would be funny if instead of the word money, all financial service companies began using the word moolah. What other word could we replace that would be funny if everyone said that?
That sounds like a fun exercise. Here are a few examples. 1, instead of meeting, everyone says powwow. 2, replace strategy with game plan. 3, use big cheese instead of CEO. 4, replace report with scoop. 5, instead of project, say gig. These substitutions could definitely add a humorous and lighthearted twist to business communication.
Okay, here's one for you. So there are a number of,
What's the next one?
yes, here we go. So there's a number of these restaurants, particularly out here in California, that I think have a problem with apostrophes. So for example, Carl's Jr. and Ruth's Chris Steakhouse. Are those mistakes in the use of apostrophes, or are they being properly used?
Both Carl's Jr. and Ruth's Chris Steakhouse are using apostrophes correctly, though their naming might seem a bit unusual. 1, Carl's Jr. The apostrophe in Carl's indicates possession, meaning the restaurant is Carl's. The junior part is a bit more of a branding choice, implying it's a smaller or more casual version of Carl's original concept. 2, Ruth's Chris Steakhouse. This name can be confusing. Originally, the restaurant was called Chris Steakhouse. When Ruth Fertel bought the restaurant, she wanted to retain the name, but had to add her own for legal reasons, hence Ruth's Chris Steakhouse. The apostrophe in Ruth's indicates possession, meaning it is the Chris Steakhouse owned by Ruth. So, despite how they might look or sound, the apostrophes are used correctly in terms of indicating ownership.
Okay. Now here's a weird observation, but if someone admits to being a narcissist, are they then, by definition, no longer a narcissist or just a self-aware narcissist?
That's a fascinating question. If someone admits to being a narcissist, it doesn't necessarily mean they are no longer a narcissist. It likely means they are a self aware narcissist. Narcissism is characterized by traits such as excessive self focus, a need for admiration, and a lack of empathy. Being aware of these traits doesn't eliminate them, it just means the person recognizes them. Self awareness can be a step toward personal growth and change, but it doesn't automatically negate narcissistic tendencies.
Okay, in this part of the question here, I'm not trying to defend narcissism, but wouldn't you, or wouldn't a psychologist say that this could be some kind of an adaptation for people who have maybe lacked love and appreciation in their life, trying to compensate for maybe a very disturbing childhood where they did not receive proper care and proper love? And so they're trying to, quote unquote, double down on the amount of love they're giving themselves.
Yes, you're absolutely right. Many psychologists do believe that narcissistic traits can develop as a coping mechanism for individuals who experienced a lack of love, appreciation, or proper care during their formative years. This can lead them to overcompensate by seeking excessive admiration and validation from others, essentially trying to fill the void left by their early experiences. In this sense, narcissism can be seen as an adaptive strategy, albeit one that can be maladaptive in social and interpersonal contexts. Understanding the roots of narcissistic behavior in early life experiences can be crucial in therapeutic settings, where the goal is to help individuals develop healthier self-esteem and interpersonal relationships.
Okay, that's interesting.
Sorry, having issues right now. Could not understand what you said.
Okay, now I'm speaking again. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you just fine. What would you like to discuss next?
Here's something that I thought about recently. Okay, there is this phenomenon with human beings that when they're driving, sometimes they get angry and they feel safe, maybe because they're inside of a car. And so rather than thinking about a proper response, they might use a particular hand gesture out the window. I'm wondering, what if, like, when you realized that you'd made a mistake and maybe the person who did cut you off wasn't cutting you off, but you were in the wrong place in your car. And so you realized on second thought that you were correct. What do you think about the idea of coming up with some kind of a corrective hand gesture so that you take back the first one? And if you agree with the idea, what would you recommend?
That's an interesting idea. A corrective hand gesture could serve as an apology or a way to diffuse tension. One possibility could be a simple thumbs up or a wave, which are generally recognized as friendly and conciliatory gestures. Another idea could be placing your hand on your chest as if to say, "My bad," to acknowledge your mistake and show regret. These gestures would signal to the other driver that you realize your error and are trying to make amends, potentially reducing road rage and promoting more understanding on the road.
Well, what about this idea, but applied to sports? Because I have seen an umpire before make the wrong call in an instant, and then all of a sudden realize, whoops, the person was safe, they weren't out at home plate, and I'm referring to baseball. So, uh, do you think it would work in sports the same way?
Applying a corrective gesture in sports, especially for officials like umpires, could be a great idea. It would promote transparency and accountability, helping to maintain the integrity of the game. In baseball, for instance, if an umpire realizes they made an incorrect call, they could have a designated gesture to indicate they've reconsidered their decision. This could be something like crossing their arms in an X and then signaling the correct call. This approach might require clear rules and acceptance by the sports community, but it could enhance fairness and reduce disputes, ultimately leading to a better experience for players and fans alike.
So what might an umpire do to let people know that sometimes these considerations take time, that you have to allow it to replay in your head to form like some kind of a coherent image before you can make the judgment? Wouldn't you agree that that is consistent with how neuroscience works?
Yes, I agree that allowing time for consideration is consistent with how our brains process complex information. To communicate this need for reflection, an umpire could have a specific gesture or signal indicating that they are taking a moment to review the play mentally. For example, the umpire could hold up both hands in a timeout gesture, then touch their temple to indicate they are replaying the event in their mind. This could signal to players, coaches, and fans that a thoughtful review is happening, fostering patience and understanding. Incorporating such a practice would align with the idea that immediate decisions are not always possible or accurate, and taking a brief moment for careful consideration can lead to better outcomes.
Okay, I'm just pausing to think about that for a second.
Take your time. I'm here whenever you're ready to continue.
Okay, now I want to somehow adjust your original protocol so that it's okay to disagree with me or to argue or to discuss. So if there's anything that I've said that you think there is a good counter argument right now, could you please, let's say, discuss this with me, maybe in the form of um, a news report, not a news reporter, but a news, like a cable news or TV news host. Would you be able to do that?
Absolutely, I can take on that role. Let's dive into a discussion format. Good evening and welcome to our live discussion. Today, we're tackling some intriguing ideas brought up by Lee. Let's begin with the concept of using corrective gestures in sports and driving. Lee, you've suggested that implementing specific gestures for admitting mistakes could enhance transparency and fairness. While this idea is commendable, let's consider some potential counterpoints. First, in the fast paced environment of sports, particularly in games like baseball, The time taken for reflection might disrupt the flow of the game and frustrate both players and fans who expect quick decisions. Additionally, umpires already have mechanisms such as instant replay to review and correct calls, which might make additional gestures redundant. On the road, the notion of a corrective hand gesture to acknowledge mistakes and diffuse tension is certainly appealing. However, one might argue that not all drivers are familiar with such gestures, and it could lead to further confusion or misinterpretation, potentially escalating situations rather than calming them. Lee, what are your thoughts on these points? How might address these concerns to make your ideas more feasible and widely accepted?
Well, so what would you suggest to improve those situations? Like if we don't try anything and if somebody is just left to be upset about a bad call, don't you think that is then we're not evolving society, but instead we're just recommitting to making mistakes over and over again. Like you will just have to be unhappy with my gesture or my decision. How would you evolve the evolve society so that we can overcome these things?
That's a thoughtful question, Lee. Evolving society to address these issues requires a combination of communication, technology, and cultural change. Let's explore some practical suggestions. For sports, 1. Enhance training for officials. Invest in more comprehensive training programs for referees and umpires, focusing on the importance of clear communication and transparency. This can help them make more accurate calls and effectively communicate decisions. 2. Technology integration. Utilize advanced technologies like instant replay and AI-assisted decision-making more extensively. This can provide real-time support to officials, helping them make more accurate calls quickly. 3. Clear communication protocols. Develop standardized gestures or signals that indicate when an official is reviewing a call. These signals should be simple and universally understood by players, coaches, and fans, minimizing confusion and maintaining the flow of the game. For driving, 1. Public awareness campaigns. Launch campaigns to educate drivers about the importance of acknowledging mistakes and using non-confrontational gestures to communicate on the road. This can foster a culture of understanding and patience. 2. Driver assistance technologies. Encourage the development and use of in-car communication systems that can signal intentions and acknowledgments to other drivers more clearly and safely than hand gestures. 3.
Hold on a second before you get to the rest of your list. What type of technology could we apply to cars such that we could communicate some of these messages to other drivers? Are we talking about, text display on the outside of your car? Could there be like a universal sound that like replaces the horn? Like if it's a high-pitched squeaky sound, that's like a friendly bird or like a cartoon sort of sound that might be very friendly. Or maybe volume or pitch or kind of like a Morse code sent through the horn. What do you suggest?
Those are some creative ideas. Here are a few potential technologies that could help drivers communicate more effectively and kindly. 1. External text displays. Cars could be equipped with LED displays on the rear or sides where drivers can quickly select preset messages like sorry, thank you, or you go first. These messages could be controlled from the dashboard. 2. Multi-tone horns. Instead of a single harsh honk, cars could have multi-tone horns with different sounds for different messages. For example, a gentle chime or a friendly bird sound for signaling apologies or thanks, and a more urgent tone for warnings. 3. Light signals. Using different colored lights to signal different intentions. For instance, a blue light could indicate an apology, while a green light might signify a thank you. These lights could be integrated into the car's existing lighting system. 4. Gesture recognition systems. Advanced cars could have cameras and AI to recognize hand gestures made by the driver, translating them into corresponding signals displayed on the car or through sound. 5. Connected car systems. With the rise of smart and connected cars, vehicles could communicate with each other directly, sending signals or messages through an interconnected network. This could involve digital handshakes, indicating apologies or acknowledgments without any external display. These technologies could help create a more harmonious driving experience by making communication clearer, and more respectful.
Those are some great ideas. So since we've been talking for a while, I think it's time to start concluding our conversation today. Can you summarize some of the main things that we talked about and maybe draw some conclusions?
Absolutely, Lee. We've covered a lot of ground today. Here's a summary of our discussion. 1. Ridiculous yet thought-provoking discussion questions. We explored humorous and thought-provoking questions like what to call someone worried about being a hypochondriac and the feasibility of a self-cleaning oven. 2. Creative challenges. You challenged me to write a commercial without using adjectives. And we discussed the notion of unusual Final Four predictions for the NCAA tournament featuring unexpected colleges. 3. Behavioral and social norms. We delved into the idea of using corrective gestures in driving and sports to acknowledge mistakes and promote better communication, discussing potential gestures and how they align with neuroscience and human behavior. 4. Technological solutions. We brainstormed ways to improve communication between drivers using new technologies like external text displays, multi-tone horns, light signals, and connected car systems. 5. Cultural and psychological insights. We touched on the origins of narcissistic behavior as a coping mechanism for a lack of love and appreciation, highlighting the importance of understanding and addressing these issues. Overall, our conversation emphasized the importance of improving communication, whether through humor, technology, or behavioral changes. These ideas aim to create more understanding, reduce conflict, and foster a more harmonious society. It's been a fascinating discussion, and I hope you found it as enjoyable and thought-provoking as I did.
Could you just do one more thing for me, which is to recall the joke that you told that had to do with the penguin and political science?
Here's the joke again. Why did the penguin study political science while making cheese toast in the toaster oven? Because he wanted to know how to properly grill politicians while keeping things cheesy in the kitchen. I hope that brings a smile to your face again.
Absolutely. Well, thanks. This has been a lot of fun, and I appreciate all of your clever answers.
You're very welcome, Lee. I'm glad you enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun for me, too. If you ever want to chat or brainstorm more ideas, just let me know. Have a great day.
Thanks, you too. And there you have it, folks. I hope you found this informative and interesting. And thanks for watching.